every single day. Millions of people, they log off work, they shut their laptops, and they just feel completely, utterly drained.
Oh, yeah. Just totally exhausted.
Right, exactly. And here's the crazy part about that. It's usually not because the actual job they do is impossibly hard.
No, it's rarely the actual work.
Right. I mean, it's not because the spreadsheet was too complex or, the client was just too demanding. It is usually because of one specific person.
Yeah.
The person they actually report to.
It really is the single biggest variable in anyone's professional life. I mean, you can have the absolute most fascinating job in the entire world, right?
Yeah.
But if the human architecture around you is toxic, it will just break you.
Oh, absolutely. It ruins everything.
It does. And conversely, you can be doing the most mundane, repetitive tasks imaginable. But if the dynamic with the person leading you is healthy, you can actually leave work feeling energized.
Yeah, you feel alive. And that is exactly why we are doing this deep dive for you today. We are looking at a framework. It's a really straightforward, highly distilled document, and it's simply titled Boss versus Leader Docs.
It's a great document.
It really is. It's essentially an 8-point breakdown that draws this massive, just unforgiving line in the sand between two entirely different ways of operating in a workplace.
And we really want you to use this as a diagnostic tool.
Right, like a lens to look through.
Exactly, because, I mean, whether you are leading a massive division at a Fortune 500 company, or maybe you're managing a small team of 3, or, whether you are just sitting at your desk right now trying to understand why your current workplace feels so incredibly heavy.
Which so many people are doing right now.
They are. And this conversation is going to help you name the exact dynamics that you are experiencing.
Because we throw these words around constantly, right? Like we use them interchangeably all the time.
Oh, totally. Like synonyms.
Yeah. You'll hear someone say, my boss is a great leader. Or they'll complain and say, the leadership team is acting like a bunch of bad bosses.
Right.
But the material we are diving into today argues that they are not synonyms at all. Not even close.
No, they are fundamentally opposing forces.
Right. They represent two totally alien operating systems for how human beings interact with one another.
They really do.
Okay.
And to understand just how opposed they are, we can look at the core thesis of the document right up front. The whole framework essentially boils down to this one idea.
Okay. Lay it on us.
A boss manages work, while a leader inspires people.
A boss manages work, a leader inspires people. Okay, so that is the destination. That is what we are trying to truly understand today for you guys. But, I mean, to get there, we can't just look at the output. We have to look at the engine itself. We have to start at the very foundation of where a manager gets their power in the first place.
Right, because before you can even look at how a team hits its quarterly targets or, how a daily stand-up meeting is run, you have to understand the source of the mandate.
Look, why does anyone listen to this person at all?
Exactly. Where does the authority actually come from? And the framework addresses this immediately by contrasting positional authority with genuine influence.
And it pairs that with the contrast between fear and respect.
Yes. Points 1 and 7 in the document. It's a brilliant pairing.
So let's look at the boss side of the ledger first. The text says a boss relies on positional authority. They give orders, and they expect compliance based entirely on their title or their rank within the organizational chart.
Right.
And because of that, that reliance on rank, they often end up ruling through fear, which inherently creates a really stressful environment.
It is a crazy contrast when you really sit down and think about it, because positional authority is entirely external.
What do you mean by external?
I mean, it's paper power. It is granted to you by a human resources department, or by a chart on a wall, or by a literal line on a contract.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it doesn't actually belong to the person. It belongs to the seat they are sitting in.
The seat has the power, not the human. That makes a lot of sense. Now, compare that to the leader side of the framework.
Right.
The text argues that a leader doesn't rely on the title. A leader uses influence and inspiration to motivate others. People follow them because they respect the vision.
And they gain that respect through integrity, through empathy, and through setting an actual example.
Which is exactly how they create a positive, motivating environment rather than a stressful one.
Because influence, unlike that positional authority we just talked about, is internal. It is deeply portable.
Portable, like they take it with them.
Exactly. Think about it like this. If you strip away the job title, if you take away the corner office, and you completely remove their ability to fire someone, Does the team still listen to you?
Oh, wow. That's a great test.
Right. If the answer is yes, you have influence. If the answer is no, you only had positional authority.
I really want to dig into this idea of compliance versus inspiration, because I think that is where the rubber really meets the road for you listening to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the actual physiological and psychological experience of being managed by a boss. When the text says a boss expects compliance and rules through fear, what does that actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon?
Well, honestly, it looks like energy conservation.
Energy conservation.
Yeah, think about what compliance actually means in human behavioral terms. Compliance is doing the absolute bare minimum required to avoid a negative consequence.
Just checking the boxes.
Exactly. It is a survival mechanic.
Yeah.
If you work in a stressful environment where the person in charge relies entirely on their ability to punish you, which, by the way, is exactly what positional authority implies, you are just going to stay under the radar.
Right. You keep your head down. You are doing exactly what is asked, nothing more, nothing less, because stepping outside of the box, trying something new, that might get your head chopped off.
Precisely. Because if your only tool to get me to work is your rank, you are inherently threatening my livelihood if I don't listen to you.
You're saying do this or you literally lose your paycheck.
Right. And that triggers a very basic, primitive human stress response.
Yeah.
You aren't tapping into my creativity or my passion. You're tapping directly into my anxiety.
And anxiety is just exhausting.
It's totally draining.
Yeah.
This is why people log off feeling like they just ran a marathon, like we were just talking about at the start of the deep dive.
Yeah, it all connects back to that feeling. But then you have inspiration, which is the leader's toolkit, and that is completely different.
Yeah.
When the text talks about people following because they respect the vision, it's really talking about discretionary effort.
Oh, discretionary effort.
Yes.
That is the holy grail of organizations.
Explain that for the listener. What is discretionary effort exactly?
It's the energy, the deep thought, the late-night problem solving that an employee gives you when no one is looking. And crucially, when they aren't strictly required to give it.
Like the stuff that's not in the job description.
Exactly. You cannot put discretionary effort in an employment contract. You can't mandate it from HR. You can only unlock it. And you unlock it through respect and influence.
I hear that and it sounds amazing, but honestly, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because this framework, it paints a very stark, very polarized picture, right? Like positional authority and fear are just inherently bad, and influence and respect are universally good.
Right.
But isn't positional authority completely necessary sometimes? I mean, let's say there's an active fire in the building, or, you know, a massive PR crisis that is literally going to sink the company in the next 10 minutes.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Right. Like, I don't want a visionary leader in that specific moment sitting down and asking for my thoughts on the optimal evacuation route.
You want action.
I want someone to point at the door and yell, "Get out right now." Doesn't the strict boss-level compliance approach have absolute utility in the real world?
So walk me through how that actually works in practice, because your pushback is totally valid, but only for acute scenarios.
Okay, fair.
Yes, in a crisis, immediate, unquestioning compliance is absolutely necessary. If the building is quite literally on fire, survival dictates that someone takes absolute command.
Right.
But what we have to realize is that this document, this framework, isn't talking about rare acute crises. It is diagnosing the sustained day-to-day operating model of a team.
Oh, I see. So you're saying a boss cheats every single day, every normal Tuesday, like the building is currently on fire.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why the boss's approach is actually incredibly fragile.
Fragile. How so?
Because if you use crisis-level authority for mundane daily tasks, you completely burn out the human nervous system of your team. You literally cannot operate a business in a perpetual state of adrenaline and fear.
It's just not sustainable.
No.
Yeah.
Eventually, the fear just stops working. People become numb to it, or the people just leave.
It's like the boy who cried wolf, but in a corporate setting. If everything is an emergency mandate from the top, then nothing is an emergency.
Yeah, and that really highlights the fragility of positional authority. It's wild because it seems like the most solid thing in the room, right? Because the boss has the title, they have the power to fire you, they have the big desk.
Right. It looks like real power.
But the very second the boss leaves the room, the compliance just vanishes.
Because the threat walked out the door.
Exactly. The second the threat is removed, the work stops. Because the motivation was entirely external.
Wow.
But a leader's influence, however, remains in the room even when the leader isn't there.
Because the team has actually internalized the vision. They respect the goal for themselves.
Right. They're working for the goal, not just to avoid the wrath of the manager.
Which naturally pivots us into how these two different figures actually get the work done.
Yeah.
Because the way a manager derives their baseline power, whether they are, pulling it from fear and a job title or generating it through respect and a shared vision, that directly dictates how they hand out the actual daily assignments.
The foundation dictates the architecture.
Mm.
Always. If your foundation is built on fear and positional authority, it naturally breeds this desperate, almost obsessive need for absolute control over daily execution.
And the framework lays this out incredibly clearly. I mean, it contrasts command with collaboration, and it contrasts delegation with empowerment.
Points 2 and 4.
Right. So on the boss side, the text notes that a boss just tells employees what to do. It's pure command and control. And when a boss does delegate a task, they micromanage it. They control exactly how things are done down to the finest detail.
Now look at the leader side of that exact same dynamic. The text says a leader works with their team. They foster collaboration, and they actively encourage input.
They aren't just dictating.
No, and they don't just delegate tasks either. They delegate responsibility. They empower others to make decisions and take actual ownership of their work.
There is a massive, massive canyon between delegating a task and delegating a responsibility.
Oh, it's night and day.
This is one of those concepts that sounds really simple on paper, but it honestly changes everything in practice.
It really is the hinge point of the entire document. Because think about how many managers claim they are great delegators just because they hand out a giant to-do list every single morning.
Right, they think, I gave you work, I'm delegating.
Exactly. But they aren't.
It reminds me of a driving analogy. Like, imagine you and I are going on a road trip, right?
Okay, I love a road trip.
So the boss is the person sitting in the passenger seat acting as the navigator. They tell you to drive. So technically, yeah, they delegated the physical task of operating the vehicle to you.
Right. I'm behind the wheel.
But then they dictate the exact route we have to take. They tell you exactly what speed to go at all times. They yell at you if you aren't in the specific lane they prefer. They get super anxious if you merge too early or if you merge too late.
I'm getting stressed just thinking about this passenger, honestly.
Right. You are sitting in the driver's seat, your hands are on the wheel, but you have zero actual agency.
None at all.
Exactly. The boss is controlling exactly how the driving is done. They gave you the physical task of pressing the pedals and turning the wheel, but they kept all the actual power and all the decision-making for themselves.
And think about your psychological state in that scenario as the driver. If you are just a meat puppet, essentially just pressing the gas pedal when you're told to, you completely check out mentally.
You just stop caring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the navigator gives you bad directions and drives you straight into a 2-hour traffic jam, you don't care. It's not your fault. You just followed orders.
There is zero ownership.
None. But the leader, according to this framework, operates entirely differently on that same road trip.
How so?
The leader points to a destination on the map, tosses you the keys, and says, "Get us there safely. Let me know if you need anything from me."
Wow.
Right. They empower you to take total ownership of the journey itself. They delegate the responsibility of the arrival, not just the physical task of pressing the gas pedal.
And the beauty of that is you are now fully engaged as the driver. If you see traffic ahead, you proactively find a detour because you own the responsibility of getting us there. You care about the outcome.
You do. But, let's dig into why the boss behaves like that anxious passenger, because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, why do they do that?
Why is micromanagement so incredibly prevalent if every single employee on Earth hates it, and if it's so clearly inefficient?
I mean, I guess because giving up the keys is terrifying if you don't actually trust the person driving.
Well, it's deeper than trust, actually. It goes right back to what we just talked about regarding positional authority. We had to analyze the deep insecurity of the boss.
Okay, break that down.
If a manager's entire identity, their entire sense of worth and power in the building is tied up in being the person who holds the rank, then they feel an immense crushing pressure to justify that rank constantly.
They have to prove they are the smartest person in the room at all times. Otherwise, why are they the boss?
Exactly. If they hand you the keys and you figure out a faster, better route than they did, it fundamentally threatens their positional authority.
Oh, wow.
In their mind, if they aren't controlling every single microscopic detail, they might be exposed as unnecessary. Delegating actual power feels like losing power to a boss.
Wow. So the micromanagement isn't actually about ensuring the work is of high quality at all.
No, not really.
It's a defense mechanism. It's ego protection. They are actively choking the team's potential just to maintain the illusion that they, as the manager, are indispensable.
Precisely. It's tragic, really. And conversely, the leader's approach, fostering collaboration, actively asking for input, that requires a massive surrender of ego.
It really does.
The leader has to willingly look at the team and say, I actually don't know exactly how this should be done. Let's figure it out together.
That requires so much vulnerability, especially in a corporate setting.
It does. But in exchange for surrendering that microscopic control over the how, the leader gains macroscopic ownership from the team over the what and the why.
That is a great way to phrase it.
And when you hand over the keys and give people that deep level of ownership, you naturally neutralize that highly stressful environment we talked about at the very beginning.
Because you aren't operating out of fear anymore.
Right. You aren't operating out of fear of making a wrong turn and getting yelled at by the navigator. You are operating out of the respect and the responsibility you feel for the shared vision of actually reaching the destination.
It's a completely different energetic state to be in for 8 hours a day, but, this brings up a huge reality check.
What's that?
You cannot hand over the keys, you cannot surrender that microscopic control and give someone deep ownership if you, as the manager, are completely obsessed with rigid, immediate metrics.
No, you definitely can't. If you are absolutely terrified of missing a daily quota, you're going to snatch those keys right back the second someone taps the brakes.
Which is why the framework shifts our attention to the lens of priority. What are these people actually looking at all day? We know how they get their power, and we know how they hand out assignments. But what is their daily focus?
Right, what's on their dashboard.
Exactly. The text breaks this down by contrasting a focus on process versus a focus on people. And it pairs that with short-term goals versus long-term vision.
Let's lay out the differences for the listener. The document outlines that bosses emphasize procedures, results, and strict adherence to rules. They are highly focused on short-term objectives, immediate targets, daily or quarterly outcomes.
While leaders, the text argues, prioritize people. They prioritize their team's development and their overall well-being, and they look at the bigger picture, creating a long-term vision and strategy for sustained success.
Now, I know what a lot of people might be thinking when they hear this part.
What's that?
It can sound very soft. It can sound like this utopian, unrealistic view of corporate life where we all just hold hands, prioritize well-being, sing Kumbaya, and somehow the work magically finishes itself.
Yes. That is exactly what I wanted to ask you about. Because the framework makes a very bold claim here. It says leaders prioritize people, quote, believing that happy and engaged team members will naturally deliver results.
Right.
So walk me through how that actually works in practice in a highly competitive, cutthroat corporate environment. Like, is the framework suggesting that leaders don't actually care about the bottom line? Are they just acting as therapists for their team?
Not at all. And this is a massive, massive misconception about true leadership. The framework isn't saying leaders ignore results, not even slightly.
Okay, then what is it saying?
It's saying they have a totally different understanding of the timeline of success and the mechanisms required to actually achieve it.
The timeline of success. Okay, let's deconstruct that.
Let's do it. Think about the boss, who is hyper-focused on the immediate outcome. Let's say they need to hit a Q3 target to secure their bonus or appease their own boss upstairs.
Very common scenario.
Right. So to hit that immediate target, they enforce rigid adherence to procedures. They treat the people on the team basically like gears in a machine.
Because if I can control exactly how the gear turns and I enforce the rules through fear, I can guarantee a very specific, predictable, short-term result.
Exactly. You can absolutely squeeze a sponge completely dry today to get every single drop of water out of it. The boss model works perfectly for short-term acute extraction. But what happens to the sponge?
It tears. It dries out.
Right. It loses its elasticity. It physically breaks down.
Which means the people burn out.
They burn out, they quit, or they just quietly quit, reverting to that absolute bare minimum compliance we talked about earlier.
So the boss hits the Q3 target, they get the bonus, but they completely destroy the capacity of the team to hit the Q4 target.
Exactly. The compliance model inherently has an expiration date.
It always has an expiration date. You can't run a sprint forever.
No, you can't. Now, look at the specific phrasing the framework uses for the leader. It uses the phrase sustained success. That word sustained is everything.
Because the leader is playing a much longer game.
Exactly. The leader knows that you cannot maintain high performance over a long timeline. using rigid procedures and fear. The only way to achieve sustained success is to prioritize the well-being and development of the human beings actually doing the work.
So the leader isn't ignoring the results at all. They're just proactively investing in the very engine that produces the results.
Precisely. They are maintaining the engine so the car can drive for 10 years, not just drag race for 10 seconds and blow up.
Let's look at a hypothetical scenario to really cement this for the listener.
Lay it on me.
Imagine a sales division facing a sudden, unexpected economic downturn. A major market shift happens literally overnight.
Okay, so the environment has totally changed. The old rules don't apply. Right. How does the boss react? Well, the boss is focused on short-term goals and rigid processes. So they panic about the immediate drop in revenue. They mandate that everyone double their daily call volume immediately.
Oh, wow.
They crack down on the script. They use positional authority to threaten anyone who doesn't hit the new, frankly, impossible metrics.
They tighten the grip. They squeeze the sponge harder.
And what happens? The team is already stressed by the economy. Now they're terrified of their boss. So they rigidly read the script, they sound totally robotic to clients, they alienate leads, and eventually the top performers just leave for a competitor with a better culture.
It's a death spiral.
It is. The process failed because the process was designed for the old economy, and the boss couldn't adapt. Their only tool was enforcing the old process harder.
Now, how does the leader handle that exact same economic downturn?
Well, the leader is focused on people and long-term vision. So the leader gathers the team and says, the market just shifted. Our old process isn't going to work anymore. I need your input.
Oh, there's that collaboration and empowerment from point 2 and 4.
Exactly. How do we pivot our value proposition to meet what clients need right now?
So the leader is leveraging the cognitive diversity of the whole team rather than just relying on their own panic.
Yes, because they spent the last year developing these people, treating them with respect, and building real trust. The team isn't operating out of fear. They actually feel safe to brainstorm, to suggest wild ideas, to innovate.
You can think clearly.
Right. And because of that, they adapt to the new reality way faster than the boss's team ever could. The leader didn't prioritize people instead of results.
No.
The leader prioritized people as the ruthlessly efficient mechanism for securing long-term results.
That is such a crucial distinction. A team that trusts each other moves faster, they communicate clearer, and they anticipate problems. Process is just a safety net for bosses who don't trust their people.
That's incredibly well said.
But process can't account for black swan events. It can't account for sudden market crashes. Only adaptable human beings can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Process is static. It only knows what it was programmed to do yesterday. People are dynamic. They can invent what the business needs tomorrow, but, and this is the big but, only if they're engaged and unafraid.
Unafraid. Man, that is the perfect pivot point for us, because we've seen how these two archetypes get their power, right? We've seen how they assign work and what timelines they focus on. But the absolute true test of these contrasting styles, the crucible that reveals the underlying architecture of any organization, is what happens when things inevitably go wrong.
Oh, yes. Mistakes. Failure. It is the ultimate diagnostic die test in any organizational system.
A die test. I like that.
It really is. Because you can claim to be a visionary leader all day long. You can put it in your LinkedIn bio.
Yeah.
But how you react when an employee makes a massive, highly costly mistake will instantly reveal whether you are actually a leader or just a boss wearing a nice sweater.
The framework tackles this in its final points, contrasting criticism with guidance and transactional relationships with transformational ones.
Points 5 and 8.
Right. And the text lays it out starkly. It says a boss criticizes mistakes. They focus heavily on failures. And because of this, they maintain a highly transactional relationship where work is simply exchanged for pay or compliance.
Whereas a leader, on the other hand, offers constructive feedback, guidance, and support. They focus on growth and learning from those mistakes. And their ultimate goal is a transformational relationship where both the team and the leader grow, learn, and achieve greater things together.
To really wrap our heads around this difference, I think it helps to think about the nature of a transaction. A transactional relationship, which is the boss model, is essentially a vending machine.
A vending machine. Walk me through that.
Okay, think about how you interact with a vending machine in a hallway. You walk up, you insert the exact correct coinage, which in this metaphor is your compliance, your daily labor.
Okay, I'm tracking.
You press the button, and a standardized, completely expected outcome falls out into the tray at the bottom, your paycheck.
Right. It's a completely closed loop. It's totally sterile. Yeah.
Exactly. Sterile. Like, you don't care about the vending machine's internal mechanisms, its long-term goals, or its overall well-being. You just want the snack. And the vending machine certainly doesn't care about you.
Not at all.
But here is the critical part. If the machine eats your dollar and doesn't give you the snack, if there is a mistake or a mechanical failure, what do?
You get angry. You hit the machine. You literally shake it.
Yes, you
Yeah.
kick it. Because in a transactional dynamic, failure is a breach of contract. There is no loyalty, there is no grace whatsoever.
That's a brutal analogy, but it's so accurate.
If an employee makes a mistake, the boss views it as a defect in the vending machine. So they kick the machine, they criticize, they punish, they use fear to try and force the machine to dispense the desired result.
And let's look at the psychological fallout of that.
Yeah.
If a boss focuses on failures and relentlessly criticizes mistakes, what are they actively engineering in their team?
They're engineering terror.
Exactly. They're aggressively reinforcing the fear we talked about in the very beginning. If you, as the employee, know that any mistake will result in public criticism or punishment, you will do whatever it takes to never, ever make a mistake.
Which means I will never take a risk, ever.
Exactly. And if you never take a risk, you will never innovate. Fear breeds absolute stagnation. It guarantees that the company will slowly become obsolete because everyone is too terrified to try anything new.
But the leader model, the transformational relationship we see in point 8, is not a machine. It's an ecosystem. It's a garden.
I like that a lot. An ecosystem is interdependent.
Right. Think about it. In a garden, the soil and the plants constantly interact and change each other. The soil provides nutrients to the plant grows, and when its leaves fall, they decompose and enrich the soil.
They improve each other over time. It's cyclical.
Exactly. And if a plant starts to wither, if there is a mistake or a failure in the garden, the gardener doesn't go over and kick the plant, that would be insane.
Right.
The gardener asks, what does this failure tell me about the environment? Does it need more water? Different soil? Is there enough sunlight?
That is exactly what the framework means by guidance and support and focusing on growth. A leader views a mistake not as a breach of contract, but as vital data.
It's just information.
Yes, it is a learning opportunity for the entire ecosystem. They step into the messiness of human trial and error.
Which goes all the way back to empathy, really. It requires the leader to understand that humans are not machines. But, here is the most fascinating detail in this entire framework. It's kind of hidden right at the very end of the text.
What's that?
It says that in a transformational relationship, quote, both the team and the leader, grow and learn.
Oh, yeah. That is a massive, massive paradigm shift.
It is huge
Yeah.
because the traditional sort of hierarchical view of a boss is that they are a finished product.
Yes.
They are this omniscient, static, perfect being sitting on a mountaintop handing down wisdom and commands to all the flawed workers down below.
The boss knows all. The team executes. That's the old model.
But the framework explicitly destroys that myth. It acknowledges that a true leader is actively being transformed by the very team they are leading. The gardener changes the soil, but the soil fundamentally changes the gardener.
That requires profound humility. I mean, think about it. If you are a leader fostering collaboration, asking for input, and empowering your team to take the wheel, you are going to learn things from them that you never knew.
You have to admit you don't know everything.
Right. You're going to be exposed to new perspectives, new problem-solving techniques, and entirely new ways of seeing the market.
Your team will make you a better leader if you actually let them.
And this brings us all the way home, really, to the core thesis we established at the very beginning of this deep dive. A boss manages work while a leader inspires people. We can now see the entire architectural blueprint beneath that one sentence.
Work is static. A process, a task, a spreadsheet. These things have no feelings, they have no potential for independent growth, they have no need for a long-term vision. Therefore, work can be managed. You can control it. You can dictate it perfectly.
But people are not work. People are infinitely dynamic. They possess that discretionary effort we talked about. They are capable of profound innovation, they suffer from burnout, they respond to fear, and they have an endless capacity for growth.
You just can't manage that with a spreadsheet.
You simply cannot manage a human being's potential through commands, rigid processes, and transactional fear. You can only extract a bare minimum compliance from them before they eventually break.
If you want the full potential of a human being, they must be inspired, they must be empowered, they must be transformed.
It really changes how you look at the organizational chart of your own company, doesn't it?
It really does.
Those solid black lines connecting the boxes, they don't tell you anything about how power actually flows. You can have someone sitting at the very top of the chart who is nothing more than a boss, clutching their positional authority, terrifying their staff, and slowly strangling the company's long-term future just to hit a short-term metric.
And on the flip side, you can have someone 3 levels down with a relatively minor title who is a profound leader. Someone who uses genuine influence, who empowers their peers, who treats mistakes as learning opportunities, and who is quietly building an ecosystem of high-performing, deeply loyal humans.
Because true leadership is entirely decoupled from the title.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want you to take this diagnostic tool and look at your own daily life. Are you operating in a vending machine or are you in an ecosystem? Are you being managed into absolute stagnation or are you being inspired into growth?
It's a vital question to ask yourself.
And more importantly, if you hold any level of authority over others, which one are you actively building?
And as you think about that, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We just discussed how, in a transformational relationship, both the leader and the team grow and learn together. We talked about the humility required for a leader to be genuinely changed by their team.
Right, the two-way street of growth.
So let's follow that logic all the way to its absolute horizon. Think about what happens when this ecosystem works perfectly. What happens when a team, having been endlessly empowered, deeply developed, freed from the fear of failure, and given total ownership of the journey, actually outgrows the leader's original vision?
Oh, wow. What happens when the students completely surpass the teacher?
Exactly. A boss would be terrified of that moment.
Yeah.
A boss would see a highly competent, highly empowered team as a direct threat to their positional authority. They would actively sabotage them to keep them in their place.
Just to keep their grip on the wheel.
Right. But if a true leader is meant to be continuously transformed by their team, and if their ultimate goal is long-term, sustained success, perhaps the final absolute sign of a genuine leader is recognizing the exact moment when the incredible team they built is finally ready to lead them.
Wow. The ultimate success is basically making yourself obsolete. From holding the torch at the finish line to handing the torch to the team so they can light the next path. That is an incredibly powerful way to look at it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures around you, keep pushing for transformation over compliance, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.